Hey guys, apologies for my tardiness here. Just had some technical issues. So welcome back to yet another Monday Critique. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Hey guys, having a wonderful day. So guys, just let me know if you hear any audio issues. So I am trying out something a little bit differently tonight. Yet another Monday Critique. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Having a wonderful day. So guys, just let me know but please do let me know if there's any issues. I already noticed that I need to check my tonight. Increase my exposure here. So give me 1 second as well. I know there's one video issue that I have a problem with, but please do let me know if there's any issues. I already noticed that I need to check my so at least you guys can increase my exposure here. So give me 1 second. Let me do that. So I hope you guys have been having a great day. So I wanted to just make sure make it a little bit brighter. There's no technical issues. All right, and I'm not so I hope you guys have been having a great day. So I wanted to just make sure, as far as technical issues, there's no technical issues. Dub, and I'm not seeing any comments about any technical issues. I'm assuming Mac. Dub as far as technical issues are concerned, I think maybe that means good thing. I don't know. Dub on voice. I don't know what that means. Mac, Mac. Dub on voice. Maybe that means good thing. All right. So I'll assume you guys can hear me because I'm not hearing any. The audio is crazy. All right. So I'll assume you guys can hear me because I'm not. 1 second. Let me hear myself. The audio is crazy. All right. Give me 1 second. Let me hear myself. Oh, there's an echo. All right, give me 1 second, guys. Oh, there's an echo. All right, give me 1 second. All right, that should have fixed it, I'm hoping. There was 2 audio sources coming in. So let me know if that fixed the echoing issue. So I'm gonna talk, I'm just gonna keep talking just to let you guys tell me if there's still an echo issue or not. Fixed, awesome. All right, so let me just check one more thing to make sure. There's another spot that I need to check so when we start doing this actually doing it, we don't have an issue. Okay, so it looks like those other areas will be fine when I start doing it. All right, awesome. Sorry, I was hearing some other audio issues. Okay, so thank you guys. Thank you for checking that out. And now we can begin. So this is the Monday Critique. I generally have 2 live broadcasts. One is dedicated to the Monday Critique, which is this show. And another one is dedicated to talking business. That one I generally try to do it on Tuesdays, but there's really no set schedule for that. But today we're going to do the Monday Critique. Now, I started the Monday Critique. It's crazy because I started the Monday Critique in January of 2016. And now we're in January, so a year and change later, and we still doing this Monday Critique. And that's a testament really to you guys for submitting images to make sure that this show keeps going. So I really appreciate all you guys for submitting your images. It's truly appreciated because it's really helping out the community. Yeah, it's really helping out the community a lot. So I sincerely appreciate you guys doing that. And we're going to get to that in a minute, like how you could submit your images and all that good stuff. So, but before we begin, I just wanted to do some quick housekeeping. So we have a special guest today. His name is George. I'm going to get into George's background in a minute. But I just want to talk about what we're going to be talking about tonight, which is basically harnessing light. George is going to explain to us how to harness light. And we're going to basically cover in two images, specifically critiquing two images tonight. So some other programming notes to take note of with respect to this show and also the Talking Business. So next week, I will be in New York next week. So there will be no show for Monday the 15th is what I have here in my notes. In fact, I'll be off for the entire week, so no Talking Business show either. So next week there will be no live broadcast because I'll be out of town. I'll be in New York, so I won't have the time to do it. So apologies for that. I will be back on Monday the 22nd. So Monday the 22nd, we're going to have a Monday critique. Now, I'm not really sure if I'm going to announce this guest yet, but James Parrish was a big help for making this happen. So, but I'll hold off on announcing this guest because it's still in flux whether or not the guest is going to be on for Monday. But I was promised. She assured me that she would be on, but I just don't want to drop the name yet if she doesn't if it doesn't work out for whatever reason. And then on the 29th, we're gonna have Bryce Chapman. He's an amazing photographer out here in North Carolina. He does some amazing work, so I can't wait to get him on. In February, we will only have like two shows because in February, the last 2 weeks of February, 1 week I'll be in New York, another week we'll be in Las Vegas, which I'll get to the Las Vegas photo walk in a minute. And then all your previous Monday critiques, like if you ever wanted to see all the previous Monday critiques, this is show number 51. If you ever wanted to see anything historically, click on the info button. There's an info button here on this live broadcast, and you'll be able to see all the historical shows if you ever wanted to see it. So now let's get into how you could submit your images if you wanted to submit your images for the Monday critique. So let me switch over to my desktop here, and I'll show you guys how you can submit your images for the Monday critique. And I'll tell you all about our wonderful guest today. So let me switch here. And guys, at any point, if there's any audio issues, please let me know, or video issues, please let me know. All right, so there's a Facebook group that I created, not specifically for the Monday critique. I created it so that everyone could, that's part of this YouTube community, could join and basically share your images, get in touch with each other. And I created a specific pinned post in this group that's dedicated specifically to this show. And the group is called Fine Art Photography and Modeling. And if you just look it up on Facebook and just type in those words, Fine Art Photography and Modeling, you'll be able to find the group. Or you could just go to the URL here, which is Facebook/groups/Fine Art Photography and Modeling, and you'll get to it that way as well. I believe there's also a link in the description for this group. So if you wanted to click on that link, the link will take you straight there as well. Now, the specific pinned post that I have in this group, it's right here. It's at the very top of the group. And if you just go into the comment section of this post, you'll be able to submit your images for the Monday critique. So it's that simple. When you submit it, you just basically provide certain bits of information about your submission, like the settings that's associated with that particular image, some basic context, so we could have some information when we are looking at it and we understand how it was captured, etc. So if you could put that information, that would be great. The images are critiqued in chronological order, so we'll get to it as soon as we get down to the bottom. So submit your images if you want your images to be critiqued, and that will be awesome. So now I wanted to get on to our guest here. So let me just give you guys a little bit of information about George. So George, he is a master photographer. So he received an award, I think it's an award from PPA for master photography. He also received a certification, professional photographer certification from PPA. He also was he's a platinum and bronze award winner for PPA. And George could correct me at any point in time if I'm ever wrong about any of this, but he's also a Kodak Gallery Elite. He also won an award from Kodak for Gallery Elite, and he received, is it the cover? The cover of the PPA Professional Photographer magazine cover. That's one of his accomplishments that he was able to accomplish over the years of being in photography. Now, if you go on his website, you'll also be able to see a list of a number of clients that he worked with. I specifically chose like the financial ones because I'm more familiar with those. So some of the companies that he worked with is like Bank of America, Northern Trust, UBS, Wall Street Journal, and a host of other Fortune 500 companies that he worked with. So he's very well seasoned. He knows his stuff. And I'm going to bring on George now. So let me switch here and turn up his level so you guys can hear him. Let's see here. Let me bring up Mr. George. Here you go. Hi, hey, George. Welcome to the show.
Good evening, Ernesto. How are you?
Did I get any of that wrong?
No, it's all basically that PPA conveys a master's certificate. It takes about 5 to 10 years of work in order to qualify for that. And then the certification is a battery of tests that you take just to show that you've mastered the medium. All in all, those are just some of the accomplishments. But I'm just grateful to be here.
Excellent. Hang on one second, George. I wasn't reading the comment, but someone is saying that I'm not seeing nothing or hearing nothing. Hang on.
Okay.
It started when he put up the info border. Hang on. Trying to see if there's still an issue. Guys, could you hear me? I know you should be able to hear George. Saying you have a lag, turn off info bar. I don't know what info. Oh, you must mean the
lower third.
Yeah, the lower third. Okay, not so. Okay, now, but sound is choppy. So much technical issues tonight. Steve Perry is saying he's having choppy. Terrence is also saying the sound is choppy. All right. George, why don't you chat with the people for a minute?
Okay.
And let me see if I can figure this audio issue out. I think it's just me, and I think I know what it is. It's basically what happened is, guys, I was testing out a new setup last night, and I did discover some choppy audio on the test that I was doing, and I think I may know the reason why, and I just need to fix it on my end. So let me do that. It might sacrifice the video, but I think I could sacrifice the video at least if we could have good audio. So yeah, they're saying your audio is good. I'm pretty sure that's right. So chat with them for a minute.
All right. Well, we'll just roll with it for a little bit, Ernesto. And again, I'm glad to be here and welcome everyone that's viewing. For those of you guys who are not familiar with who I am, my name is George DeLoache. I'm a portrait artist and photographer's coach. I've been in the business about 30 years as a professional, been in love with the medium of photography since the Boy Scouts. So it's a passion. I am one of the luckiest people in the whole world because I get to live out my passion. Like Ernesto, I formed a Facebook group called Camera Artist. We're changing the name from Camera Artist Group to Camera Artists Guild because we are a group of artists that are there with a specific purpose, and that is to learn to master the photographic arts. Photography is a phenomenal medium. I've had the good fortune to study with some of the great masters, and one thing was unique amongst all of those, that no matter how old they were still excited about learning, and they were still learning. This is a medium that you'll never learn to master, but it is a joy to be able to work with it. Now, what I try to do in my coaching and what I try to do on Camera Artist Group is to help people be able to take the art form of photography and use it to develop their visions in a way that the mechanics of the art form don't stand in the way of their vision. So we're gonna, I don't know whether we're coming out okay. I noticed Steve Perry was out there. Hey, Steve, hi to all those folks, all my friends that are coming over from Camera Artist Group. I'm going to keep on rolling because I haven't heard anything from Ernesto, so I'm just going to roll on into the topic that we're going to talk about. What I've learned as I've done coaching and working on this subject for a long time is that it's easy if we break things down into threes. So I have broken everything down into threes. And I call this the Master's Road because it is the road to mastery of the medium. In the Master's Road, there are three fundamental components, three sides of the triangle. There's the transmission side of the triangle, the receptive side of the triangle, and the post-production. Control or learn to master the transmission, the reception, and the post-production, and you can do anything that you can conceive photographically. Inside the transmission side, that's everything that transmits light. Now, as photographers, most of you guys probably already know that the word photography, photographe, means painting with light. And so light is the subject that we work with. We work with light, we work with dark and shades in between, and we work with hues and saturations. And that is the way we take what we have visualized and put it into a two-dimensional medium where it becomes visible for everyone else. On the light side, the transmission side, that's everything that transmits light. It's everything. It could be the sun, it could be a strobe light, it could be a hot light, it could be a flashlight. It could be any sort of light at all, but learn to control that light and you can do anything that you wish. Now, here's one of the frustrations that I had for so many years, and a lot of the newer people to the medium that I've run into have, and that is the fact that they see images that they want to create, or they visualize images that they want to create, and they're frustrated because they never come out quite right, and that is because they have not learned the fundamental components. Now, let's just look at one side for this evening. There's too much to go into in the whole thing, but let's look at the light side, and we're just going to talk about the transmission side. I break that transmission side down into another pyramid, and I look at light in three sections. One, the quantity of light, one, the quality of light, and one, the direction of light. Control the quantity, control the quality, control the direction, and you can create anything you can visualize. Or you can look at those images that inspire you and be able to deconstruct them and know exactly how the photographer went about making those images, or how the painter used the medium of paint in order to simulate what they visualized. Now, looking at that master triangle, and that, excuse me, not master triangle, but lighting triangle, quality, quantity, and direction. Quantity. Let's look at quantity for a moment. I'm just going to touch on these things because there's not time enough to go into all of it, but just touching on it. Quantity, we have, depending upon the recording medium, whether it be digital or film, there's a limited band that gives the effective reproduction of light. Now, our eyes are capable of seeing in massively dynamic ranges. We can see in almost all dark. We can see in almost all bright. You can go out into a ski mountain and see with all of the white light around. You can go into a very dark room with very little light and see. That's because your brain makes the compensation for it. But the recording medium, be it either digital or film, does not have that dynamic range, the ability to record that. Matter of fact, it has a very narrow dynamic range. So when we get into controlling the quantity of light, we have to find out how much light there is and how we are going to allow that light to reach our recording medium and our reproductive medium, which we'll talk about in a moment. Ansel Adams, who is one of the daddies of photography, and I had the opportunity to be at one of his workshops while he was still alive, used to teach a thing called the zone system. And the zone system was Ansel broke light down into 11 categories, from 0 to 10, 11 different categories. And what he realized was that with each batch of film that he used, because he was using film, each batch of film was a little bit different, and he had to experiment or test each batch so he'd know exactly how to expose to get the perfect amount of light on that film. It is the same way with digital. We use the digital zone system. Now, the middle of that digital zone system is zone 5, or middle gray. That's where your light meter meters, that's where the center of everything is. Dynamic range is the how much light above that middle zone and how much light below that middle zone can be recorded, both by the camera or reproduced by the reproduction medium. It's different from inkjet to a monitor to a photographic process. Each one has a bit of a different dynamic range. And what that means is that we break it down. It's broken down into stops. And stops are a mathematical understanding of how much light is there. You have the exposure triangle, another triangle, which is f-stop, shutter speed, and ISO. And each one of those, whether you, and they're reciprocal, they move around, you can use either one, whether you either double or half the amount of light, that's one stop. So the zone system is broken down into stops. At zone 5, moving down to 1, zone 5, moving to 10, you either halving or doubling in each one of those steps. Your camera sensor only can record so many stops above the center line, zone 5, and so many stops below the center line, zone 5, in order to be able to reproduce it. So you have to keep everything in the center of that zone. Your reproduction medium also has that same dynamic range limitation. So here's the challenge. We have to have the exposure in the center so it's perfect, but we also have to control the light in and around the entire image so that it stays within the dynamic range. If your whites are too bright, they'll blow out and they'll be gone. If your blacks are too dark, they'll go dark and they'll be muddy and they'll be gone, and you'll have no detail. And you see that so many times. But if you know how to handle the amount of light you put on your blacks, and you know how to handle the amount of light you put on your whites, and you know how to bring that all within the dynamic range of your medium, then you can create these spectacular images and be able to have them viewed in a way that is pleasant. Yeah, I guess that would be the term, pleasant. So that's the zone system. And come on by Camera Artist Group and we'll talk about that at another time. Now, quickly moving over to quality of the light. We're talking about quantity. Quality of the light, there are 4. This time the 3s don't work. It goes into 4s. There's 4s. There's 4 different areas on the quality of light. You have hard light, soft light, specular light, and diffuse light. Each one of those has to do with really how the shadows work in relationship to the highlights. Hard light has a very short shadow transfer edge from where it's in your diffused areas into your shadow areas. Think of sunlight. You have very harsh shadows. They're dramatic. They go straight from the illuminated area to the shadow area just very quickly. They're hard. And that is because the size of the light, the size of the light in relationship to the subject, the larger the relationship, the larger the light in relationship to the subject, the softer the light will appear. It has nothing to do now with diffusion. That's a different area. Now, diffusion and specular has to do with how the light itself is handled when it's leaving the whatever source is emitting it. Diffuse light is what you see when you have light coming through a softbox. Specular light is what you would have light coming from an aluminum reflector or a speed light without a diffusion cover put on it. Control hard light, or understand hard light, soft light, diffuse light, and specular light. Understand those, and you now are able to gain greater control of the medium. Fundamentally, 3 dimensions. We are working with a 2-dimensional medium. We have height and width. Depth is implied by how we handle those shadows and how we handle those highlights. Dean Collins, who is another phenomenal guy, very much like Ansel Adams, developed a system for explaining 3 dimensions, and he broke it down again into 4 areas: into the diffuse value, the shadow value, the transfer edge, that is how rapidly that shadow drops off, and the specular highlight, those little highlights that you see in the area. Control each one of those, and now you have mastered both the quality of light and the quantity of light. The final area is the direction of light, and that is how that light comes in and strikes the subject, from what direction it strikes the subject. There are certain directions that are pleasing and certain directions that are not. Over the years, artists have broken it down into fundamental different areas. There's a chart, I think, that Ernesto is going to put up over here, or will go up, and it really breaks it down into all the different areas. The idea is, though, you need to be able to understand those and direct the light that you're directing. You're going to give the proper quantity, the proper balance between lights and darks. You're going to give the proper quality of that light, and now you're going to give the proper direction. You have Rembrandt light, which is a little triangle under the eye. You have loop light, which is a little broader area on the light. You have Paramount or beauty light, which is light from above. You have monster light, which is light from below. You have split light, which is light coming in from one side of the face. And then you have variations of all those called broad and short. Broad light being where the main light source is hitting the side closest to the camera. Short light is where the main light source, since this light won't allow it, short light is where the main portion facing the camera is in darkness. Control your direction, control your quality, control your quantity, and there's not an image that you can't handle. I call it harnessing light because it is literally like taking and placing a harness on light and making it do what you want it to do. You no longer are there left trying to figure out what to do, but you can take what you visualized and take what you visualized and bring it into visibility without any hindrance on the medium. So that just gives you a little thumbnail on where to go and how it operates. I don't know where we are, Ernesto, time-wise. Jump in there. I have
that is a wonderful explanation. I think one of the lighting patterns that I really enjoy is loop lighting and Rembrandt lighting.
Mm-hmm.
And I think once people learn to understand, the quality, the quantity, and the direction of the light, once they kind of harness those 3 things, and understand the lighting pattern that they enjoy or they can reproduce on any given moment, I think that will help people to really harness their skill sets.
Well, it does, and the thing to remember is it really doesn't make any difference what kind of light it is, because it all works the same.
Yeah.
You can work with a flashlight and high ISO, or you can be in the sun. You say, well, wait a minute, how can I move the sun? You can't move the sun, but you can move the subject. So if you have the sun coming in one direction and you want Rembrandt or loop light, then you have to position the subject in a way that gives you that same pattern, but you're still looking for those patterns. You're still looking for how to go about applying those patterns and those other areas, no matter whether it's a fixed light source like the sun, whether it's continuous light, or whether it's strobe. You can handle anything once you understand those.
So DMAC is, well, thank you. DMAC is telling me that I'm still choppy for whatever reason. Even I changed up everything. But, you know, the show will go on, unfortunately. As long as your audio is good.
Well, I would like to invite everybody over to the Camera Artist group on Facebook. You'll find it under Camera Artist. Come on over, say hi, check into the group. We're a small group, but we're really into helping people grow and get better at what they're doing.
Yeah. So I'll bring that up. I know it's horrible, like I'm choppy or whatever. You guys can't really hear me that well, but I think you could hear me. It's just choppy. So I don't know. I can't fix it right now, but I will continue here on with the show. Unfortunately, you probably won't get too much of my feedback because of that choppiness. But the first person I wanted to start with here, George, is Carlos' image.
Okay.
So Carlos submitted an image here, and the settings that he provided that's associated with this image was he utilized a 5D Mark II. You shot this with a 25 to 105 lens at 105. ISO was at 500, f-stop was at 5.6, and his ISO was 1/80th of a second. He used two LED tubes, 15 watts, 6500 Kelvin camera right, and one LED, 21 watts, 6500 Kelvin camera down left. George, I'm gonna let you go. Typically what I would do is I will go here first, but before I go, guys, just let me know in the comments if I'm still coming through choppy, and if I am, at least let me know if you can hear me properly. I know it probably is coming bad, but just at least let me know if you can hear me. So I'll look out for those comments, George, and if you want to take the first crack at this image, focus in again, guys. There's four things that we focused on here: is light, posing, composition, and post-production. So the first thing we're going to start with is light. So if you could analyze and dissect this image from a lighting perspective.
Okay, well, let's jump in and take a look at it. I do a Thursday critique on Camera Artist where people submit their images and we go through critiquing. So I hope that I stick within your framework. But first of all, Carlos, I commend you for your image. I love the color saturation and the vibrance of what you've been able to do. Your exposure is right where it's supposed to be. And so congratulations to what we would call in print competition. I'm also a judge out here in California for print competition. We'd say congratulations to the maker for creating the image. A couple of places I look at that I think you can tighten up the next time. Understand that when you're using such a tight cropped image as you have here this time, it's fundamentally a beauty shot. And so it falls into a lot of parameters. Now I noticed that there looks like snowflakes there, which is a great effect. Here's an area that I'd like you to look at. On the right side of the image, lower right side, the lower jaw, which would be the left jaw, but we'll call it camera right. There's a heavier shadow than on the left side of the image. Because this is a beauty shot and your main light source is in the beauty light position, paramount position, above pointing down at the subject, you do have a light filling from the left. That side being a little darker kind of detracts from the image. When you're using a beauty light position like that, the best place to light it is from below, or clamshell. Lighting above, which you've done, light a little below, or brighten that area up a little bit. The other thing that I'm looking at compositional wise is that I'm looking for symmetry. I like to see the image be symmetrical, and I think it's slightly rotated. I think it is slightly rotated a little bit off of center. Check that by drawing your guides in Photoshop down. Make sure that your irises or your pupils are level, unless the head is tilted in that direction intentionally. But all in all, it's a strong image, and I like what you're trying to do. Does that cover it, Ernesto?
It does. I'm going to test this one more time. I just restarted my audio while you were talking. Hopefully that is better. Hoping. I don't know. But yeah, I pretty much agree all around with what you stated here. Nice butterfly lighting would also do good. But I'm just basically spitting here just to see if anybody hears me properly or not.
Well, you mentioned something very good there when you mentioned butterfly light, and let's explain that. I'm sure your people probably already understand, but it's called butterfly light because there's a shadow that appears under the nose on the upper area between the upper lip and the nose, in this area right there, and that shadow appears like a little butterfly.
Right.
If your light source is too high, that butterfly will dip into the lip. You never want it to dip actually down into the lip line. You want it placed between the two. Here, the light source is so low that there isn't really that much. So you could actually raise it a little bit, raise the light source a little bit, and I think it would help out. Although you are getting shadow under the lip, so it is maybe a lot of that shadow is blown out by the fill.
Probably. So I think my personal take on this, with respect to the lighting on this, I think overall, I think I kind of like what you did here with respect to the two light sources you utilized to help light this particular image. I particularly love the catch light in the subject's eyes. I'm always in love with catch lights. So I think George basically covered a lot of this stuff. I mean, the one thing that when I saw this image that George pointed out was, you know, this shadow area that was here, you know, because if this was a beauty image, obviously you will want it to be a little bit more lit. But if you were trying to go for a little bit more of a dramatic feel, I kind of understand. But it's kind of like, you know, it's caught between dramatic and beauty. It's like, but I think overall I like what you have going here. I would have loved to see if you were using trying to go for the butterfly lighting. Well, I'd love to see a little bit of a shadow underneath her nose, and that would have been it. But other than that, I do really like this lighting setup. So that being said, now that everyone can hear me, let me just, did I just write on his face? Her face? I did write on her face. So now that everyone can hear me, guys, if you have any comments about the images, please put those comments down below or put them in the chat window. And you know, we will go through it after we're done reviewing this image. So the next thing that we're going to focus on, obviously in my 4 categories that I look at, is posing. Now, there's really no posing with respect to this particular image, so I won't really say much, but like I said, with respect to posing, there's always like an expression or feeling with it as well. And I really like the attention that I'm getting from a viewer's perspective with this subject. Like, she's really connecting with me. So that I really love, and I love the fact that she have a slight part in her lip. And I think from those two things, just meaning her eye connection and the slight part in her lip, I think for those two things, it really connect with me this image really connects with me with those two things. But I don't think you could tweak it any more than that with respect to the posing. Maybe bringing her chin down, maybe just a little bit down, but that's nitpicking. But that's just me. So George, what do you think about her posing in this particular image?
Well, again, when you're in with this tight an image, there is very little posing to be done. But the only couple of things that I pointed out, I think the image is just a little bit off center. So that, and I do that all the time with my camera. I'm constantly having to straighten it up in Photoshop because I'm a little bit off center one way or the other. Matter of fact, I'm sitting off center here. Uh, but other than that, I think it's just fine. And I like to see it symmetrically centered on the page. I think that would just make sure that you have equal amount on both sides. And one final thing, which now is my turn to nitpick. I would like to see more information. I mean, she's got great hair. She's got this hood with fur there, and I want to see more of the image rather than just so tight on her face. I'd like to see more of it. I'd like to see incorporate that hood and her hair into the image. Does that make sense to you at all?
It does, kind of like you just basically look at to try to get like a series. So sometimes, like, you know, I see photographers, well, given that we only critique in a single image, we don't know what the other images are, but I could see what you're saying. Like if this is like a little bit disjointed from the series, then it probably doesn't connect well. But yeah, I mean, if this is the only shot that he took from, and I doubt that might be the only shot, but if it was the only shot that he was happy with, that he walked away with and edited and said, this is it, this is the shot from this particular series, yeah, I think it doesn't give you enough story. And when I get to the post-production bit, I'll mention the part about this image that I think probably is not necessary, but in regards to the series, I just think if this is the only image that was captured from that series and was produced, then yeah, I see your point with respect to the disconnect there. So moving on, I know you already talked about the composition being off-centered. I was playing while you said that with the composition, trying to make it centered, and I think you're spot on. Let's see here. I think if it come down, I'm just trying to reposition it here and see. So, and I think I don't like that, what I just did, but in any case, I don't have much to say with respect to the composition, but I do agree with your respect to making it a little bit centered. Right now it's off-centered. And what I just did here, I think messed up her hairline, so I'm gonna undo that really quickly. But yes, I think it just needs to be a little bit centered, and that's about it. I mean, over and above that, I really like the fact that she is connecting to the camera. So lastly, let's talk about the post-production in this particular image. So from a post-production perspective, the one thing that's distracted me from this image a little bit is, if you're outside, well, I'm just trying to be realistic here, right? If you're outside, hang on. Oh, I thought someone was talking about the audio again. So if you're outside and you're in the snow, right? Typically, the snow doesn't part ways and make it clear for your face, right? It's generally like you would see some snows maybe on our forehead or nose or something like that. It won't be this clean. So it looks like it's something that he put added in post. Which if that's the case, that's fine. You could absolutely do that. But and I guess this is one of the reasons why I don't do like any type of composites and stuff like that, because I just don't have the skill set for it. But yeah, I think if you just put a little bit more snow in front of her face, maybe some a little bit more out of focus closer to the camera, I think that would have helped sell the fake, if you would, like Joel Grimes say, help sell the fake. So yeah, I think that's what I wanted to say with respect to the retouching on her skin. I think you probably did like some frequency separation on her skin a little bit, and I would say for that, just try to pull it back just a little bit, just to bring more of that details back into her face, make it a little bit more natural, and just a little bit more dodging and burning, just to emphasize some of her features. And as far as that would be it with respect to my critique with respect to the post-production. But from a non-photographer perspective, anyone looking at this image, including your subject, I'm pretty sure they're gonna walk away with it saying, thank you, I'm very happy with it. It's awesome. But you know, since we're critiquing it, that's the little things that we would say from a photographer perspective. So George, what do you have to say about the post-production?
I agree with everything that you said there. Now, a couple of things. One, we've already talked about the tightness. I run across that with the people that I critique all the time. People tend to crop everything in the camera, and it gives them very little options in post to whether to go, you know, maybe it calls for a horizontal, maybe it calls for a vertical crop. Maybe you want to stretch the image some, and if you crop so tight in the camera, you don't give yourself enough room to be able to have some options in rendering and post. Now I'm going to really get nitpicky. This is really nitpicky. And please, Carlos, you don't know where I live, so don't come get me. But I would retouch the lips. You've taken the time to get the skin right, and there's a lot of lines in the lips that almost look like she's dehydrated. Not completely, but almost. And those, you can literally build 2 layers, and then on one layer remove the lines, and then with the opacity slider dial them back in, but not quite so dynamic. And I think that would smooth the lips out just a little bit. Now that's nitpicky, that really is. I agree with you. It's really a good image, Carlos. You did a good job, and I'm sure that the lady was thrilled. The other thing I would say is there's a couple of techniques you can use to punch up the irises. She's got these beautiful hazily green eyes, and you can pump those irises up a little bit and get a little bit more color out of the iris. There's some techniques for that, but again, like I said, please excuse me for being nitpicky.
So let me, before we go on to the next image, I see some comments in here, people asking about the name of the group. So here, I put it up on the screen. It's called Camera Artist Group. That's the group that George heads up. So if you guys want to head over to his group, that's the name of it. And if you do a search in Facebook, it will come up as Camera Artist Group. Okay. Right. So I hope that helped those folks that was looking for it in the comments. So let me close this out. This is from my old skip this time. Not sure why that popped up. All right. So let's go to the comments. Let's see what people have to say about this particular image as we were critiquing it, and then we'll move on to the last image. By the way, guys, I really do apologize for all these technical issues that I was having tonight. I'm going to try to figure this out. Actually, I'm going to go live after this and test some certain things out. So if you guys want to come and hang, that would be cool as well. All right, so let's see what people have to say with respect to this particular image. If we scroll through here really quick. Way better. That's all about audio. Let's see here. So DMAC was asking George where you're from. I think George is in LA. So DMAC, if you're in LA.
I'm on the left coast.
Let's see here. I'm just scrolling through to see if anyone have any comments. The crop takes away from the picture. In respect to George's point. So you're saying this making it center take away from the picture? That was a comment from Tony Gilliam. Okay. Thanks, Flint. Okay, so my man Flint was saying her jaw looks thinner on one side. I think he was talking about that when we were doing the post-production. Yeah, and that's because the light is coming in from camera left, and it's on the right hand side is a little bit more in shadow. So I think if you could have brought up the shadows a little bit more, it wouldn't look or appear that way to you, my man Flint. So that's what happened there. All right, so I don't see any other questions. Hang on. Castillo is saying, George stash Ernesto softbox or octobox for outdoor portraits and why? We'll get to that in a minute. Since it's not related to the question, to the picture, we'll just move on to the next picture and critique that. And after that, we'll jump back into the comments. And if you guys have any questions for myself or George, we'll definitely tackle it at that time. All right, so moving on to the next picture, let me bring up his information. Where is it? Here we go. So I won't try to pronounce this gentleman's name because I'll probably butcher it. So unless you have any luck with that, George. No. No. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I won't try to pronounce it. But he submitted this wonderful image here. And the camera settings on this, he used a Canon 750D with a 50 millimeter, 2.8. Shutter speed was at 1/125th and ISO was at 400. So this was his wonderful image. So we're gonna dive into this particular image now. So the 4 things we're gonna start with is video is frozen. Whose video is frozen? My video is frozen. Hang on, did it stop? Let's see if it came back. Did the feed stop?
I think mine may be frozen.
Let's see.
Yeah, I got a small monitor running on the channel right now.
Okay.
And I think I'm stuck in the same position, so you probably lost me. If you can hear me audio-wise, I look better stuck anyway.
Hang on. I think it was when I minimized everything, I probably screwed it up. Hang on. I think they probably could still hear me, but they can't see.
I got the volume down. I'm watching the broadcast, like I said, on another monitor.
Yeah, hang on.
And you're still moving, and the image is up.
Yeah, I think at some point it kind of stopped moving. Hang on. It's all these technical issues tonight. So no, it's a wonderful night. I don't see myself moving, no. The face feeds of you and George is live. Yeah, the Photoshop is live. So we'll just continue. I think you guys can hear me. I'll figure this video thing out in a minute.
And now I'm looking at an image of all you, and the lower third is gone, everything like that.
Yeah, I moved it. So I think they could still hear me and you. It's just the video feed is frozen for a minute, but I think the desktop is still going. So we'll just continue. I could see you editing the image. Yeah. So they could still see the desktop, but they can't see the video, which I'll figure it out. I'll figure that out in a minute. I probably just have to stop it.
Happened to me before too with the OBS.
Yeah, I think that happened because I minimized the OBS for a minute. Yeah, so many stuff going on. All right. Well, at least they could hear us and they could see the desktop, so that's good enough for now. We'll fix it. I'll fix it in a minute, but let's continue here. So the 4 things that we look at here is, you know what? With so many broadcasts, it's bound to happen on one. It's bound to happen on one.
Old Murphy shows up again.
Yes. So let's start out with light with this wonderful image here. So, you know, this gentleman, it looks like he utilized all of natural light in this particular image, and which is totally fine. You could always utilize natural light, but the one issue that I find with this particular image is that the young lady could use a little bit more light in this particular image. Yeah, Treborn, I know we're both frozen. I'll fix the video in a minute. I just need to let's just get through this and I'll fix the video in a minute. So Yeah, so basically, yes, the young lady could use a little bit more light in her face. She could use a little bit more directional light on her face, let's put it that way, to add a little bit more depth into her face and this image. I don't, I don't mind so much the blown out background that much if that's the look that you're trying to go for, but I would definitely think that you would need to use a reflector, use an off-camera flash, use something else that could just bump some light into your subject just to enhance it a little bit more. Right now I feel like she's just getting lost with all that light that's surrounding her. So yeah, use a reflector, use an off-camera flash just to add a little bit of direction onto your subject. Also, it would also give your subject some nice little catch lights, which right now her eyes is kind of lost. So adding a little bit of a catch light would definitely help with this image. And that's about it. That's all I have to say with respect to your light in this particular image. So George, what do you have to say?
Okay, since I'm frozen, I'm actually have opened it up in Photoshop and I've turned away from the camera, so if it comes back on, you see the back of my head. A couple of things that I'm looking at. I really think that there is a secondary light source, and the reason for that is if you look at her shoulder, camera right, the white material on her shoulder is brighter at her shoulder area, and then it darkens as you go down her waist. So it looks to me like there is a light source there. Now, I use the info palette in order to check the exposure on an image, and I can definitely see a light fall off from the shoulder down. So I believe there was a secondary light source. If there was, that secondary light source should be moved around to camera left so that you can illuminate the face. The face needs more light in it. You losing detail when you are working with black and white.
You're back,
you are
George.
Working with the. I'm sorry.
You're back.
I'm sorry.
You're back. The video is
I'm back. So
yeah,
okay, that was my back. So we'll spin around this way, and I'll try to work with this monitor over here. When you're working with black and white high key, you have to be very, very careful. Remember, we were talking about dynamic range. Keeping things within the dynamic range, and you have stepped outside that dynamic range. There's a way to bring those skin tones and that dress in there together. You literally can have detail in the whites, detail in the darks, detail in the hair, detail in the skin, but it means adding a little bit of light there. Now, there's some stuff you can do in post to improve it. Another thing, when I look at that background, if you're gonna blow out a background, blow it out. Right now, the background has so much detail going on in it, the windows, the bushes. I literally went in, and when I do my critiques, I spend some time working on the image before the broadcast. And so I literally went in and lightened that whole area, and it's amazing how much more attention it draws to the subject when you lighten the bushes, you lighten that little window up there in the upper camera left, upper left-hand corner, and then lighten the subject. So if you get more light into the subject. Now, here's a little trick that you can use if you are using Photoshop and you're doing a black and white conversion. When you're using, if you take that image, if you bring that full color image in, don't capture in black and white, capture in color. Bring that image in, use the Photoshop black and white conversion. Go to your yellow slider. On your yellow slider, increase your yellow slider, and it will pick up mid to darker skin tones. It'll raise their values. It'll brighten them up without blowing them out like raising exposure. And when we photographed with film years ago, we would literally use different filters on the camera lens in order to make those adjustments. But you can take skin tones and brighten skin tones up, not affecting the exposure, but literally brightening them up by working that yellow or red slider, because skin tones are full of reds and yellows. So you could take that image, render it in color, slide up the yellow slider, blow out the background a little bit, and then lighten the face a little bit more by using blend modes, blank layer, overlay, white brush, 10%, soft brush, paint it in over the face area a little bit, bring it up, the image is gonna pop.
Yeah, I think that that little.
Did I just confuse you?
No, no, I think that little tip about the increasing the yellows for
Right.
black and white, I
Right.
definitely do that for my black and white images, and it definitely
Right.
helped it make it pop.
Right. Well, it does. It will bring skin tones up. And there's a difference between changing the exposure, like in levels or in curves or using exposure. This way it brightens it, but it doesn't affect the exposure. So you keep all of the density of the file and all the texture, and you don't get milkiness, you just get brighter. And that's a pretty cool thing.
Yep, totally agree. So I enlarged the image because I think DMAC was asking about enlarging the image, so I did enlarge it. So now let's move on to the pose in this particular image. So as far as the pose, a couple of things with respect to the pose. The first thing I would say, let me get my little drawing here. Let me minimize this. So a couple of things that that pulls me away from this image a little bit with respect to the pose. I would say overall, I kind of like the almost triangular shape. Ooh, I got the low opacity going on here. So let me increase the opacity on this. Okay, so I kind of like the triangular shape that you're trying to have going on here. First of all, I really love that. The one thing that's distracted me a little bit away from this image is the overlap of the knee that's here. I almost wish if she would have just basically pushed her knee down just a little bit so it doesn't appear like there's something just growing out of, her arm or fingers here. So I wish she would just push her knee down just a little bit. Or just basically hide her legs to begin with completely. And as far as her hair is concerned, I almost wish that you would have bring the entire, hair around. And instead of having her hold on to her hair, maybe her hands, her fingers could have connected a little bit more to her chin. And that would have looked a little bit more elegant than her just holding on to her hair. A couple other things is her knee here. I wish this, or her leg, I should say, her feet. So our feet here, I wish you could have actually just see a little bit more of it, as opposed to it being hidden a little bit from the whatever the material is that is blocking it. So I wish you could see a little bit more of it. So besides the feet, the knee, her hands, other than that, and her hair, overall, I love the fact that she's connecting really well with the camera. But other than that, I really think you did a pretty good, well, you and your subject, I think you did a pretty good job. But those little minor tweaks, in my opinion, would have helped increase, would have made the pose just a little bit more elegant. And those are my particular thoughts with respect to this image. All right, so George?
Well, first of all, I commend the maker for using pretty good, strong composition. You've got an altered S curve there with a nice little triangle going in. And she's dropped in close to rule of thirds, 1/3 compositional line. So that's strong. I find that it's best when you're seating a model, especially in a dress like that, to roll her up on one hip. If she were to just roll to one hip or the other, those knees would change position, and that would make quite a little bit of difference. I like her arm, her hand, her hair. Now it's time to really get nitpicky. Okay, so here we go, guys. Send all your comments to I either want to see I want to see the foot. I got just a tip of the toe and the angle, and you've got that tool on the floor or whatever that is there. Push it down. Let's see at least one of the feet. That just gives me an anchor there to where she's anchored in. Now I know that is nitpicky. The other thing is that you barely survived that door frame coming out of the center of her head, but there's something else coming out of the top of her head, right about, in the background. And that can be so easily cloned out, either with a clone stamp or something like that, to give that hairline so you don't have that. You see what I'm talking about? Right at the top end of her hair, right up along in there, there's something on the back wall.
I do, but I wanted to save that for your
okay.
composition. But I do see what you're talking about.
Oh, I thought we were talking about composition.
No, we're talking about pose.
Oh, pose. Sorry about that. Well, okay.
No,
well done.
But go ahead.
No, that's it. That's it.
Well,
I'm
now,
not playing by the rules.
Now we're gonna roll into the composition. So so I'll let you finish your thought then. So now that let's roll into the composition. If you're done with the posing.
Yeah, that was it. It's just here's one of the most difficult aspects of composing an image inside the camera, and that is looking beyond the subject of interest and checking everything in the frame. We get caught up. You've got an attractive lady, a nice outfit. It's probably wedding, I imagine that. I'm not sure whether that first name belongs to a man or a woman, but Ogunde, I believe, is the last name. Probably Nigerian, something like that. So you've got everything there is really good, but you didn't take time to see what's in the background. So take time when you are composing an image to look at your background. And if you can't look at it, if you don't see it when you are doing it, then handle it in post. Get those little images, those little things out of the way that detract from the image. Does that work?
It does. I almost have like the same comment. What I would have done. Let me talk about what I like about it first. So I kind of like that you place your subject here on one side of the frame as opposed to dead centered. I kind of like that. But I would have almost had the subject switch positions. I mean, if you really love this particular angle that you were shooting from, and maybe you can shoot any other place, I would have almost had the subject sit on this side so that this part of the image, she doesn't have anything growing out of her head. So I would have just had it switched around a little bit. Mm-hmm. Going back to what George was saying with these items that's coming out of her head. And then if you'd have done that, this little pole that's outside, which I guess is from the veranda or something, you're going to easily clone that out in post, as opposed to working so hard to clone out these bits out in post. So other than those little things with respect to the composition, changing her position over here, and you could almost still have the same composition, as just she's changing her body position as opposed to her leg pointing to camera left. It'll just be pointing to camera right instead. And I think that would help with your composition a little bit more, and it probably helped more with your high key as well, because now she'd just be isolated in this pure white background. And that's it. That's all I have to say with respect to your composition.
Well, there's one thing that's a possibility, and that is moving the camera position. Mm-hmm. I don't know what's happening to camera right, but you've got that drape in the background, and maybe if you moved left and incorporated more of that drape in and less of the items in the back window, you would frame her very nicely against that drape. And then you make sure, depend on your lens, but a longer lenses and a larger aperture, and get a little bokeh action happening there. Drop that depth of field down. I think it'd help out a little bit better to isolate her from the background.
Yeah, definitely agree. Her current position just doesn't help with where she is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now let's move on to the post-production. And as far as the post-production, I think we mentioned a lot of this in respect to the lighting. A couple of things that George had mentioned, which is bringing up the exposure so it could blow out the background a little bit. And I already did that. So I just turned on those adjustment layers that I added in, which was just 2 curves adjustment layers. And bear in mind, I'm using a mouse, so I'm not really accurate at what I'm doing here. But just bringing up those exposure levels. And I would also get rid of, I'm not sure how much of a fan you are with logos, watermarks. But I would almost get rid of the watermark. It just doesn't add, at least in my opinion, it just distracts away from this image completely. So I would just get rid of it. And that would look so much cleaner. So as far as post-production is concerned, those things and getting rid of, well, I won't try to get rid of it right now because that's probably too much work, but getting rid of the stuff that's, growing out of their head. And that would be it. I would almost like to do something here with this tool or whatever it is that's on the floor. But I almost would have to get like another image with her feet to actually, put it in there. But that's it. That's all you could probably do with this image. Bring up the exposure a little bit on her, and getting rid of those stuff that's growing out of her head. So that's all I got to say with respect to the post-production on this image. What do you have to say, George?
Okay, a couple of things. I agree with you with the name or the watermark. If you were submitting an image for critique or print competition, using a watermark or a logo or something like that on the image really doesn't benefit. I understand putting it up there because, people steal your work and you're concerned about that, or you want people to know where the work came from. I understand that, but in print competition or in critique, it just detracts from the image. Okay. A couple of things that you can do in post-production. I mentioned blend layers, taking a blank layer, changing the blend mode to overlay, getting a white brush, making a soft edge white brush, bring it to between 10 to 20% opacity, and stroke it across her face area and the lower dress, and it will lighten that area up a little bit. Another way that you can operate is in using the exposure palette, but use the gamma rather than the exposure. Go down, grab the gamma, and kick it up a little bit. Make a duplicate layer, use the gamma, brighten it up a little bit, put a layer mask on there, and then paint in the areas that you're lightening, and that'll leave the other area to where it is. I played around with the image and picked it up in a lot of different areas. I do want to commend the maker because it's really, we're taking it apart in places, but it's a well done image. I mean, there's so many good things about that image. So don't be discouraged. Keep going. Keep doing what you're doing. Both of you guys, keep going.
Yeah, I really think these were two amazing images that we nitpicked to hell. But I think
I always want to be polite and constructive. I don't want to hurt anybody. I am a veteran of print competition. I have been entering professional print competition and judging since the 80s. And you pour your heart and soul into an image, and then when people start to criticize it, it's like getting stabbed in the heart. And you go, how can you do that to me? And, so I want to rehabilitate you with a little CPR there and let you know I really do like the image.
No, I think they did a phenomenal job. But this is all part of the process, right? You submit it so you could see, you could hear feedback on what you didn't see, And I think that's really, that helps you with your next image, basically. These little tips here and there helps you with the next image that you're about to create. You get to see or develop your eye a little bit better. So I think it was great. So now I'm going to go to the comments, and because these are the two images that we're going to critique tonight, and we did it, thankfully, with all the technical issues that we had. I must say, all these technical issues, man, it really, really put me off my game. I can't, the multiple things that you'd be having to do to get things to work versus having to focus on a job of getting, critiquing these images, it really tossed me off, guys. So I apologize for this broadcast tonight. I'll definitely try to make it better on the next one. I shouldn't have tested this new setup on this new broadcast. I should have probably did a live broadcast separately, which I generally do to test out audio and video stuff. So that's my bad. But that being said, we still got it worked out. You guys can hear me and you could see us wonderfully. So I'm just going to bring up George here, and we'll just see what you guys have to say with respect to any questions or comments. So before I bring up George, let me just go back here really quickly to the Facebook group where you guys could submit your images. So there is my Facebook group is called Fine Art Photography and Modeling, and in that Facebook group is where you could submit your images if you wanted those images to be critiqued. There is one specific post in there where you can do that. It's a pinned post at the very top. That's the only place you would submit it. If you submit it any other place, it's not going to make the Monday critique. But if you submit it right here at this particular post, and if you go to the comment section, you submit your images, and once you submit the images will be reviewed in chronological order. Okay, so that's where you could do it. Let me switch over here to myself and George, and I'll say one more thing, and then we're going to have a conversation with you guys. So let's see here. Gotta get rid of that, turn that on. Switch. All right, so the one last thing that I wanted to say to you guys is this YouTube channel basically covers 4 specific things, just like how I critique images. We cover lighting, posing, composition, post-production. So those are the types of videos that you will find on this channel. So this live broadcast is just a special broadcast that I do. And the Talking Business broadcast, which is tomorrow, is just a special broadcast that I do. But typically what you will find on this channel is those types of videos surrounding those 4 specific pillars, which is lighting, posing, composition, and post-production. So that being said, let's dive into your comments here to see if you guys have any comments and questions. And then if you don't, we will wrap it up. But let's see what you guys have here. So I'm going to scroll through. George, while I'm scrolling through this, if you want to say anything, please feel free to jump in.
Well, I just want to thank everybody for showing up tonight, and I thank you, Ernesto, for inviting me to be part of your group. It's an exciting opportunity to meet new people. Again, I invite you over to the Facebook group, Camera Artists Group. You can find it Camera Artists, plural, with an S. It is in the group section. It's a closed group, but I admit anybody that's a photographer, all you have to do is go in, and as long as you're not a crazy, there's only one crazy allowed, in the group. And come on over and join us. I do periodically have workshops. Most of the time they're put on in association with PPA or the local affiliates. I'm going to be in Orange County, California in February. I'm going to be up at the Channel Islands group here, I think it is next week, and then I'll be having a workshop at my studio where we have a chance to really delve into these areas and go deeper. Also, I am available for coaching if you looking to really delve into this thing, so you can get in touch with me. Check me out on Google. Just Google my name. I think it's on the list there. GeorgeDeLoache. Bam. Check me out. You'll find out who I am, and drop me an email and say hi. Glad to get to know you.
Awesome. So I had your group here up. So let me switch back to us here. So I was just reading through the comments. A lot of the comments, folks, were agreeing with a lot of the feedback that we would provide in respect to the last image. Trebor 777. Good point, George. I had to teach myself to do this. I think he's referring to shoot, I forget which one he was probably referring to. But anyways, you gave a good information, and I guess he agreed with it. So that's awesome. And then he had to follow up. He said, Trebor 777, I have had to fix stray hairs, bra straps, etc. because I was too focused on the subject and not the other details. Maybe this is his image, maybe. So Trebor, if this is your image, just say if it's your image. But I think that's what he's talking about. He's saying he was too fixated on the stray hairs, bra straps, and etc.
It happens to all of us. We get myopic, and then we get it into post, and we look and we go, holy heck, I just did it today. I was at a major corporation doing a group, and right in the lower left-hand corner, something got into the image, and I didn't even see it. And so I could handle it in post, but I could have easily handled it on capture if I had just meticulously went all around that image in the viewfinder. But you get caught up, it happens. So, if you don't get it on capture, you get good at post.
Yeah. Wow, I like that one. So my man Flint is saying, holy smoke, Uncle George is the corporate headshot king. Damn, OG images are amazing, Uncle George. So there you go. You had a new coin name, Uncle George.
Oh, they call me everything, man. I got one guy out of Detroit calls me the Godfather. I'm like, dude. I'm just glad to be called something.
So my man Flint, I guess he's been Googling you while we were chit chatting, because he's talking about George is also a Photoshop guru. So I'm scrolling through the rest here, guys. Just if you have any questions while I'm scrolling through this, please drop those questions down below so we could address it. Just what I think I was thinking, DMAC. George has. So Steve is saying, George has critiqued some of my images. He's always spot on. So that's from Steve Perry.
Yeah, Steve's a good guy. Good photographer.
My man Flint is saying, I love nitpicky critique. Michael, thank you, man. Thank you for the super chat donation. Much appreciated, even though I had all these technical issues, but I appreciate it. Much appreciated. James, I put up the Facebook group. If you didn't get it, I'll put it up again, but I put up his Facebook group it's called Camera Artist Group. So if you want me to put it up one more time, I will put it up. Also, I have it in the description of this video. So if you go to the description of the video, you'll find a link to his group in the description as well. So George, so James is saying, George, let me in the Facebook group. I ain't crazy, I promise. Nah, James is a good dude.
All good, brother. It's all good.
Analyzing the scene, Detroit. No, not my image. Oh, so Trey Bourne is saying no, it's not his image. Okay. So I don't see any questions coming in, guys, but it was awesome. I'm really taken aback with the whole the technical stuff, but ask George, did he know Gordon Parks? I don't know
Oh,
who Gordon Parks is.
oh, of course. Gordon is my hero. I believe that it's vitally important for all of us photographers to have mentors. If you were a musician, I would ask you who your influences are. When I meet with other photographers, I want to know who their influences are. Gordon Parks was among one of the greatest influences in my life. You got to understand, I'm an older guy, and I grew up in a period of time in America when there was a thing called Jim Crow. We were separated off as a ethnic group of people. And Gordon Parks came along and broke that color barrier like Jackie Robinson did with baseball. Gordon Parks came along and was the first one to step up into the ranks of full-time major pro with Life magazine. And when he did that, he told me that you can do it too. And so I followed Gordon all my life, and I finally had an opportunity to meet him a couple of times and to study with him. And probably one of my prized possessions is an 8x10 black and white of Gordon Parks and Isaac Hayes sitting at the camera, or sitting at the piano, doing the score for the original Shaft. So, yeah, Gordon Parks is huge. Yeah.
Man, there's so much wealth of knowledge that's just built up in your head over time, man. It's been humbling, not only chatting with you offline, but chatting with you on the show. It's just, for the most part, I just need to sit back and listen to most of the things that you have to say. I mean, there's so much you could learn from just listening to what you got to say. It's been an honor for me, for sure. So I really, really appreciate you accepting to even, participate in this show. It was certainly educational for me. Castiello is Castiel Diallo. Okay, so he's asking the same question that he asked before, which was, he's asking both of us, softbox or octabox. So I'll give my reasons why I like octabox, and there's only one. I just like the catch lights. That's it. It's just a circular catch light. That's my preference. So what's your preference, or softbox or octabox?
Yes.
To both.
Yeah, it just depends. It depends upon what I want to do with it. You're right. The Octa has the round catch light. That's pretty cool. I use them all. Each one of my light modifiers has its own flavor. It's like an artist picking a paintbrush. Same way with my lenses. And so I pick my light modifiers based upon how I'm going to execute the vision I have in my mind. So that's it. So there's not really advantage one over the other. Some of the octas are not quite as deep as the soft boxes. Especially, I'm also using the term octa to cover any round light modifier. If you're using a soft lighter or one of the round light modifiers that has the umbrella, the light goes into the umbrella, then comes to the diffusion material. It's a whole lot narrower in depth. So if you have a height problem, ceiling height problem, you can get that light source higher in the air because you don't have so much depth that you do with a soft box. So there's a point that you might want to take into consideration. I've worked in places, my first studio, the ceilings were so low that I had trouble getting the light high enough, and that's where I found that really made a difference. Matter of fact, they were so low that I used to use kindergarten school chairs to pose on because if I couldn't get the light higher, I'd get the people lower.
Wow. Man, those are some interesting nuggets. Let's see. Gordon Parks images are phenomenal. Now I'm gonna have to look him up.
Right.
I'm looking up here. Gordon Parks.
American Gothic is probably one of his most famous. But that whole group, that whole Farm Bureau group. See, Gordon Parks, Dorothea Lange, Brookie White, Stieglitz, Steichen, all of those guys were there together right during the end of the Depression. And
I know who he is.
Yeah.
I know his images, but I just remember his name. Okay,
Oh,
I know who
Gordon
it is.
Parks
Yes.
is he is a Renaissance man. Not only
Yeah.
was he a still photographer, he was a composer. He was a writer. I've got every book that he's written. I've got his autographs. And I went to Brooks Institute and studied with him for a while, and also with his assistant, Douglas Kirkland, who assisted Gordon Parks in his earlier days. Kirkland now is an old dude also, but he's amazing, and the stories that Kirkland has to tell about his experiences with Gordon, are amazing. Right along with Richard Avedon, that's another
Yep.
humongous name.
Yep.
You mentioned a couple of things. I just wanted to mention this. It's not about what I know, man, because I stand on the shoulder of giants. You heard that before. It's not me. It is all those people that have gone before me, and we just build on one another. I just absorb what other people have shared with me. That's all. But it's such an amazing art form. I am, in my 60s, and I am more in love with it today than I was when I was 12 or 13 years old and just starting out.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly beneficial for us, who don't have as much experience as you do, to listen and understand and just soak in as much as you can. Just like how you soak in as much as you can. I try to do the same thing. And even if it's just hanging off of a word or two, you could still learn so much from it. Castiel is asking another question here. And I'll let you take this one, because I know, I don't think I really necessarily have a preference, but well, I do have a preference. I do have one preference. So he's asking here, when shooting editorial photos from a low angle, what is your lens choice?
Boy, that is an interesting question, because I don't know whether you were talking about photographing speakers where they're on a platform or a dais, or whether you're talking about musicians who are performing on a stage. That's one lens choice. You're talking about, he said wide angle, right?
No, he's saying when shooting editorial photos from a low angle, what is your lens choice?
That really depends upon my compositional decisions, depth of field, perspective, and lens distortion. So all of those go together to make a decision. And the low angle is the thing that kind of threw me, because if I'm shooting at a low angle, I can only see myself at performances or people on a dais speaking. And then I'm gonna usually pick a medium range telephoto lens somewhere along in there.
DMAC is saying, everyone is hanging on your every word. This is the quietest the chat has ever been. Hey, well,
either that or they're bored out of their minds,
Well, when you're in the presence of so much knowledge, you sit down and you're relaxing and listen, Well. So I think that's about it. I don't think anybody else is having much questions. I think I think that's about it. So I would say, George, once again, I sincerely appreciate you accepting and joining the show. We did talk about probably doing a talk in business where we could actually focus a little bit more on the business side of things, and maybe you could bring your knowledge on that side to help educate the masses. So we try to work that out. I'm sure the guys, I'm sure the viewers will definitely enjoy that. So if you guys enjoy this video, well, before I say that, make sure you definitely go and check out, Tony is saying great presence, not bored. So there you go. That answers that. So if you guys definitely, if you guys enjoyed what George had to say, and you learned a lot from what he had to say, because I certainly did. I was here, I listened, I learned a lot. So if you did, definitely go over to his Facebook group, the Camera Artist group on Facebook. Go over there and join. He does his critique every Thursday. He critiques, you know, more significant images than I do in this particular show. He does over 6-7 images in one sitting. So
I run 15.5 hours.
wow.
And I try to throw tips in because because I'm using the same software you are. I can bring up my screen over there and get into Photoshop, and I can share the ways I go about tweaking images to improve them, so you can pick up a few Photoshop tips in the middle of it all.
So there you go. So make sure you join this group, because you will definitely get your images critiqued by the master. So make sure you do that. So guys, if you enjoyed this video, please go ahead and hit that like button. Put some comments down below and let me know what you think. Also don't forget, before I go, the link is down below in the description for the people that's watching this rewatch for George's Facebook group. The link is down there, so if you want to go there, just click on the link and it'll take you straight there. So yeah, put some comments down below if you enjoyed this video. Please share this video with your friends and family if you think it would be helpful to them, especially if they enjoy photography. Share it with them. And guys, if you got this far in this video and you haven't subscribed yet to the channel, what are you waiting for? Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Take care.